I am alcoholic. Through the grace of a very loving God that I've accessed in Alcoholics Anonymous through the 12 steps and the fellowship, I haven't had a drink since Halloween 1978, and for that I owe you my life. I want to really want to thank the committee for the hospitality and the phone calls and the basket and treating a guy like me who never felt like he fit very good like he fits. And I appreciate the hospitality. My old dear friend Lloyd is here, and he's a great member of Alcoholics Anonymous. He's from Las Vegas, and I say that for two reasons. One is it's true, and the other reason is he'll now go buy the tape, cut out the part where I say something nice about him, and play it over and over and over and over and over again, and get spiritual. I've had a wonderful time so far up into this moment. The speakers have been great. It was great talk. He was, those of you who didn't hear him, he was born in Bombay, India, and he was a Hindu. And I just recently discovered that one of the reason that most Hindu brides, after they get married, have a red dot on the foreheads, his husband was seeing if he won a 7-Eleven. I didn't make that up. I'm just passing it on. Don't kill the messenger. I mean, Jesus Christ. They put up a watch up here for me, right? It's a Mickey Mouse watch. I don't know if that's a comment of what they expect or what. I don't know. I was just thinking of, yeah, really. To get all the nonsense out of the way, I want to talk, basically I'm here to talk to two people. It's the only two people I can talk to. I don't know who you are, but I know you're here. You're always here. The first person I'm here to talk to is the person that for some reason that you don't understand, you can't get a foothold in here. And you've been in and out for a number of years, and you don't know what's wrong with you, but it doesn't seem to be the same thing that's wrong with other people, because even when you make up your mind you're not going to drink again, you do. I'm here to talk to you because you are me. I was that guy for 7.5 years here. And the other person I'm here to talk to is the person that's leaving Alcoholics Anonymous with a number of years, and you don't even know you're leaving. And you're leaving one judgment at a time. And you're physically still in the rooms, but you're really not here anymore. And I'm here to talk to you because you're me also. On a couple occasions, I was in danger of leaving AA, and I did it by one judgment at a time, one compromised action at a time. And I've been fortunate enough to survive myself in my sobriety, and have a renewed and a greater commitment and enthusiasm for Alcoholics Anonymous than I've ever had. I'm sober a little over 27 years. I'm an active member in good standing of a group in Las Vegas, Nevada called the Specific Group. We meet about 25 times a week. 15 of those meetings are in hospitals and institutions. That's where my heart is in Alcoholics Anonymous, is carrying out the primary purpose. I'm a member in good standing because I have jobs there. I'm in service in my home group. I have a sponsor, and I'm in good standing with him because he knows he's my sponsor. Because I talk to him, and he's current in my life. With even he's even current with the little childish, pathetic things. He's current with everything in my life. And I sponsor guys. And between all of that, I seem to be tethered to something here that allows God's grace to, not for me to get perfect, but allows enough of God's grace in my life that I can stay here. I'm supposed to tell you in a general way what I used to be like, what happened, and what I'm like now. I will tell you, I suspect I had alcoholism before I ever picked up a drink. I must have been like a freeze-dried alcoholic waiting for alcohol. And I suspect that because I was I didn't come from an alcoholic home. I came from a good family, a lot of love. I was well treated, but I was a little bit off. I look back at my childhood, and the only thing I remember with any clarity is me. I remember all about me. I can't tell you much about my sister and my mother and father or their struggles with anything less that do with me. I was the center of the universe even back then. Nobody did that to me. It's just my nature. And I didn't know I had alcoholism. I just adjust. To Dr. Silkworth says something that has rung true for me through my whole life. Drunk or sober. He says, to us, our alcoholic life seems the only normal one. And I just adjust to being weird. I just adjust to kind of not fitting and feeling like I'm coming from behind. I just go with it. And I didn't know I had a malady of my spirit, of my being. I just adjusted to it. When I was 12 years old, the disease of alcoholism, the real disease of alcoholism within me, was touched for the first time by alcohol. And I want you to know something. It made me feel so good that the way I would feel without it from that moment on would never be enough again for me. And I lived for it. And it was almost like immediately, as a result of the effects that just lit me up, I couldn't get enough of it. And partying became the center of my life. And it seemed like from that moment on, I just existed doing time between parties. And it was the center of my life. But I am the guy that Dr. Silkworth talks about in the book when he talks about alcoholics. People like me, and only people like me, have that physical allergy to alcohol that's manifested in a phenomenon of craving. And what that really means is every drink of alcohol I've ever taken in my whole life has made me feel like I'd like to have another drink of alcohol. I have never once had in all the years I drank, I never once had the experience of sitting in a bar, throwing them down for an hour or so, and have some bartender, somebody come over and say, Bob, would you like another one? Never once sat there and thought honestly to myself, this is just right. Never once. It's always one more. I don't get just right. But I get so close, it makes me crazy. I get a feeling like I'm about to get there. I'm about to touch the face of God here. I'm telling you, just on the next drink, and I drank with a sense of urgency, just got one more. I'm the kind of guy, I can drink till I am laying on the ground and I can't get up. But if you would bring me a drink, I would really be obliged, I'm that guy. I drink when I'm drunk. I got that phenomenon of craving. And if that was all that there was to alcoholism, if that was the whole deal, but that's only the tip of the iceberg. As a matter of fact, there's nothing in Alcoholics Anonymous designed to attack that. Treatment centers try that. Well, just don't drink no matter what. Well, I can do that. I can do that. I remember making up my mind, and I really meant it, man. That's it. I ain't drinking. And I could say no, and I could say no a lot. No. I ain't that. Nope. Put that. No. I said no, man. I said no. Don't ask me again. No. Well, okay. And for an alcoholic of my type, there's a yes in every barrel of no's. I'm telling you, sometimes it's at the top, sometimes it's at the bottom, but it's coming. If you're an alcoholic of my type, the question with untreated alcoholism, without God's grace, without Alcoholics Anonymous, the question is not if you're going to drink again. The question is when. It's an absolute inevitability, and it's an aspect of my powerlessness that makes this a terminal, deadly illness. That a guy like me can swear to himself, can be on paper, facing time in a penitentiary, can swear to myself and mean it. I will never touch that stuff again. but my spirit, without the medicine of alcohol or any other kind of chemicals, becomes ill, sober. And it's such a subtle thing. You know, Silkworth says it very well when he says the alcoholic, when he stops drinking, is restless, irritable, and discontented unless he can again experience that sense of ease and comfort he'd once found in taking a few drinks. So this is a weird deal because the alcoholism, it's not a big restless like where you got to be medicated even though medication's nice. It's not that kind of like crazy restless. It's just a gnawing, unsettled feeling. It's just an absolute inability to ever feel really like I'm at the right place with the right people, doing like everything's right. I'm restless. I can't get settled. You ever watch a dog circle a room looking for its spot to lay down? I'm a dog who can't find its spot. And there's an aimlessness about me. And irritability, I'm irritable when I quit drinking. I don't know I'm irritable. I'm not, it's not really, it's not that I'm irritable. I really get it what's wrong with people. You know? I mean, I just get it, you know, and I just see how screwed, I see the stupid people in the world, right? The stupid, I mean, and I got this sense of urgency to tell them, which makes abstinence a lonely business for a guy like me. And I don't fit anywhere sober. And sometimes the irritability, the fact that people rub me the wrong way, that life rubs me the wrong way, sometimes it drives me into myself. And I'm the guy that's gone in here so deep because I'm so irritated and afraid of you and everything out here that some guy's diagnosing me as clinically depressed because I went in too deep and stayed too long. But it's not really clinical depression. It's the depression of the obsessively, overly self-involved. I just go in here. I just get my life on me and my emotions on me like that creature in Alien that attaches itself to your face. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, how you doing, Bob? Hanging in there. Hanging in there. And what happens to me is I'm locked up in the bondage of self, sober, dry, until I can't take it anymore. And what happens is every time I start fantasizing the obsession with the ease and comfort, the obsession with the effect of alcohol comes back. It comes back in a form of a yearning for freedom, of busting out. So I come out and play. Because there was a time in my early drinking, when I first started drinking in my early teens, and probably up until my late teens, maybe 20 years old, there was a magic about drinking. I mean, it was it, man. I'm telling you, it relieved me of the bondage of self. Because I could walk into a party or a dance or a bar and locked up in my head and 4 or 5 drinks, 3 drinks, and I'd come out and play. I could talk to people. I could be funny, and I'm not funny sober because it's serious sober. But you get me half lit up, I can be funny. I can shoot pool better than I could ever shoot pool. I find myself saying just the right things at the right time. Remember 3 o'clock in the morning and getting deep, cracking the secrets of the universe? Remember, I'd say stuff blow my mind. Just, whoa, man. And then I sober up and I'm back to being me again. And I never liked that much, really. I'd tell you, if it wasn't for alcohol, I'd probably be celibate to this day. I'm not trying to be crude. That's just the truth. I tell you, I remember junior high school. I went to this dance, and I'm sober, and I went to this dance because there's a girl in my class I have a crush on, and I want to ask her to dance. And I remember, did an angel get its wings? I remember standing up against the wall in that gymnasium, like watching her dance with that sick, lonely feeling of separation that is part of the malady of the spirit called alcoholism. That feeling like it's all of you and then there's me. And I stood there trying to get up enough courage to ask this girl to dance. I remember struggling in conflict with myself and saying to myself, okay, I'm going to ask her to dance. I'm going to ask her, oh, next song, man. And I can't, the next song would come and I'd be, oh, yeah. Oh, next song. I did that for a half hour till I finally screwed up enough courage, walked over, asked her to dance, and she said no. And I got to walk back across that 7-mile gymnasium, and everybody is looking at me. And you know how sometimes it seems like you can read people's minds. You know that they're all thinking, oh, what a pathetic loser he is. You know, and I went back and stood on my wall and stood there, and my head is spinning. And every time somebody looks my way, it's, oh, you know. And I finally bolted out of there and went home and moped like you're supposed to. I'll tell you something. I'd have never done that again. Except later on that same year, I was at a dance under the power of 151 rum and Coca-Cola. I was smooth. What can I say? I mean, everything was clicking. The words would just come out of my mouth. The girls were dancing with me. And if one said no, boy, is she missing it. Now that's power to actually change my whole integration with this planet and this universe. That is power. Is it any wonder that a guy who sobers up and he's a bump on a log and he doesn't fit very good and he's moody and depressed and oversensitive, is it any wonder that a guy would go after that at all costs when he's this, really? And so I drank every chance I could get. But alcoholism, this magic effect that hooked me, this treatment, this dynamic and immediate treatment for the malady of my spirit that I'd found in alcohol, as the disease progresses within me, what happens is it's a disease of diminishing returns. And what happens is over the years, my ability to recapture that effect gets less and less and more elusive, and the problems start piling up and getting worse and worse and worse. And my life is burning down around me, and I don't know what's wrong with me. And it seemed almost as if when I first started drinking in my early teens, every time I would go out to party, it was like spinning a roulette wheel. And on that roulette wheel, there was it was great stuff. There was drag racing. There was sitting in with the bands. There was shooting pool. There was roughhousing with the guys. There was laughing. There was getting laid. It was a party, man. It was dancing, all kinds of great stuff. And then as the disease of alcoholism progressed, it was almost as if some real sadistic force in the universe is screwing with the wheel. And they're taking off some of the fun stuff and they're putting up wet pants. They're putting up arrests. They're putting up throwing up. They're putting up that look. You know, the look that only an alcoholic will ever see. Most people will go through their whole life and never see the look on a loved one's face that we see so frequently. That look that's a mixture of pity and contempt. That look that just says, you're killing your mother. That look that just says, how could you do this again? That look of bafflement that we see a lot. The lost jobs and the broken relationships. And I always considered myself a nice guy, but I'll tell you something. I look back over my life objectively when the years I was drinking, that anyone who ever tried to love me got hurt. It almost as if I punished them for loving me. Almost as if I hated myself secretly so much that I'm going to punish anybody who loves the person I hate the most. Now, I never did any of that consciously, but if you could have stepped back from my life objectively and you looked at the broken hearts in the wake of my alcoholism, it would look like that. I was a blackout drinker. Anybody, is there any can I see a hands? Any blackout drinkers? Oh, good. Okay. You are my people. I'll tell you, though, it's tough going through life when other people know more about you than you do. That's a hard deal. And, you know how it is. I mean, God, I never did anything good in a blackout, you know. Nobody ever came up to me the next day and said, "Oh, Bob, you were so helpful last night." You peed in our kitchen. You hit on my wife. You broke my lamp. You passed out on my front lawn. You sideswiped my car. You told everyone last night you beat Bruce Lee in a karate match? And, you know, man, and I'll tell you, there's a certain just sick element of our society that just waits to tell you the next day. They live for it. It's like Christmas when they're telling you for them. And so what happens, if you're like me, you hear that stuff and it's awful and I'm ashamed and embarrassed and I can't stand it. And now what happens is I got to drink at my drinking. And, you know, scientists, you know, they've battled for years whether it's possible to have a perpetual motion machine or not. I'll tell you, that's close. Because my drinking is making it necessary for my drinking, which is making it necessary for my drinking. And abstinence becomes more and more difficult and more uncomfortable. And the way I feel about myself is not getting good. It's getting worse. Because it's a progressive illness over any considerable period, drunk or sober. Without God's grace in my life, I get worse, never better. Never better. But I don't know what's killing me. I know I feel like my life is just crumbling around me. And I went to my first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. I was a very young kid. I wasn't even old enough to take a legal drink yet. And I was in an institution. And I don't really want to go, but the people that run the place are making me go. And I go to this AA meeting and, oh, God, I mean, the people there, I mean, they're like 30 or 30, they're 35, 40 years old. Their life is over. I mean, Jesus Christ. I mean, I'm a young kid here. And they talked a lot about God, and oh, that just made me crazy, you know. And the thing, I think the thing that I had the hardest thing with is that I would sit in the meetings and I feel awful. And I want to be different. And I'm doing everything that the people in AA are doing. I'm drinking the coffee and I'm not drinking alcohol. I'm going to the meetings. Even if they call on me to discuss, I even share for a cup. I'm trying to be a part of. And what becomes painfully apparent to me after a period of time is whatever is wrong with me is not the same thing that is wrong with you. Because I'm not drinking and abstinence feels like I'm doing time. And I put up with it day in and day out and week in and week out. And I'm not only restless, irritable, and discontent, but I suffer from low-level depressions. And I have a head that just won't leave me alone. And it just chatters to me nonstop. And it's not user-friendly. It's bad. I can walk into an AA meeting and I just get nuts because there's people. One of the problems I got with Alcoholics Anonymous is there's people there. And I don't know what people are thinking, but I suspect it's about me. And so I go into a meeting, and I remember doing this many times, and I don't know where to sit. And I'll sit over there then those people will think I like them or something. And okay, I'll sit over there, but they saw me looking over there. Now what are they going to think? And those people now, oh my God, I end up in the back of the room, just like spinning in my head. If I said hi to some guy that said hi to me the week before, and he didn't say hi back, I know. He never did like me. You know what I mean? It just starts. Right? I don't get headaches. I get brain tumors. And I get them over, and I don't know how many deathbed speeches I have rehearsed. And I'm not talking about drunk, I'm talking about sober. I can't tell you how many of those scenarios I'd run through where all the people in AA that thought I was a bum and realized how wrong they'd been and run to the hospital, oh man. So I drink, right? And I drink, and I know I'm not like you, because if you identify with anything I've said, even to a small measure, and you've been like that, felt like that, and thought like that, and sat in AA meetings and looked at the other people, there's nobody in AA that looks like they're like that. They look like they're doing fine. You listen to their stories. They're grateful for everything. Everything. I'm not really grateful for anything. Really, I don't know what's wrong with me, but there's something about me that the shine of stuff just wears off so quickly for me. I can get the best girlfriend I ever had, and within a month, she's all screwed up. I get the best job I've ever had, and within 3 weeks, they're taking advantage of me. It's just, I think you could give me a brand new Bentley, and in a month, it's the wrong color. I'm just that way. And I just can't. And I live in a world, my parents, who are not alcoholic, they lived in the same house for 30-some years. And I'll tell you, they were as grateful for that house 30 years later as the day they bought it. How do you do that? And I listen to people in AA are like that. And you love everybody. You're happy. You're happy and sober. I don't get that. I get happy. I get sober. I don't get them together. I don't get... to me, Alcoholics Anonymous has good news and bad news. The good news, if I went to thousands of these stupid meetings, I'd stay sober the rest of my life. And the bad news is I'm going to live a long time. I'm the guy that talks about in A Vision for You. You see, I can't imagine life without alcohol, really. And it's not the beverage alcohol. I can't imagine life without that effect. I can't. It's too bleak for me. Abstinence feels like I'm doing time. And the book goes on to say in that same section, it talks about exactly what had happened to me. It says there'll come a time when not only will you be able to imagine life, we won't be able to imagine life without alcohol, but you will be unable to imagine life either with it or without it. It says, then you will know a loneliness such as few do. You'll be at the jumping off place and you'll wish for the end. And that's what had happened to me. The last couple years of my drinking were bleak. And the last couple years is not a party anymore. The last couple years I drink and I go on crying jags. I drink and I wished I was dead. I drink and I'm just as depressed and full of self-pity drunk as I was when I was sober. I drink and I'm lonely. I drink and if I can get to a telephone at 4 o'clock in the morning, I'm calling up old friends and girlfriends and stuff, because I'm so lonely. And I just feel so empty inside, and I hate myself. I don't bathe anymore because once the magic of the party went away and I can't jumpstart it, I don't care about nothing no more. When I go out to get drunk, I'm not the guy that splashes on some cologne in his best clothes. I just go and I get a half gallon of Richard's Wild Irish Rose or whatever I can put enough money together to get, and I get it for one reason and one reason only. Not to party anymore. I just want to blot it out. Because that's all I could get out of drinking the last couple years. And oddly enough, in spite of that reality, and that was my constant reality the last few years I drank, I could not jumpstart the party and get back to the good old days. In spite of that, in a halfway house or a treatment center, after 6 months or 8 months of abstinence, I would start fantasizing. The book calls it self-delusion. I would start fantasizing that even in the face of overwhelming experience that the party's over, I start imagining that it'll be like it, if I drank, it would be like it was when I was 20 years old again. And it's that self-delusion is a psychotic, wishful thinking. It's all the evidence and information is that it's not that way, but my God, I want it to be that way so desperately that in the face of reality, I will imagine that it's that way when it's not, and I will try it one more time, because the vacancy and the emptiness and the hole in the center of my being, sober, just drives at me. I think alcoholism is a disease that demands treatment. And I'm going to treat it one way or another. And I don't have a choice. It's like an itch I am compelled to scratch. And I didn't understand any of that. And I didn't get that what Alcoholics Anonymous had for me was really an alternative way to scratch the itch. That what AA really had was, it really, in a different form, it has a treatment for alcoholism that's almost like alcohol was when alcohol really worked in the good old days. That Alcoholics Anonymous is designed to relieve me of the bondage of self, just like 5 shots of tequila did when I was locked in my head and depressed. That Alcoholics Anonymous will restore me and integrate me by clearing away the things in steps 4 through 9 back into a sense of community. It'll restore me to a family that I was so estranged from that in 1977, when I ended up in jail, facing a couple years in a state penitentiary, and I called them, they wouldn't take my call. And they wouldn't talk to me anymore. And I did that to them. My parents loved me, and they would have done anything for me. And the pain of loving me beat them up over and over again to the point where they had to physically cut me out of their life. But they never could cut me out of their heart. So my mother took pills and went to see a therapist, and my father slept 15 hours a day. Because he could cut me physically out of his life, but he couldn't cut me out of his heart and his mind. And I did that to them. Those were people that would have died for me, and they almost did. And I think the reason they were able to walk away, they didn't have Al-Anon. They just finally, my mother worked for mental health, and she was surrounded by helping professionals who helped her to stop being part of my problem. But it wasn't easy. And I did that. I did that, and I knew I did it. In 1978, after being in this treatment, it wasn't even a treatment center, it was a place called the Ark House. It was like the bottom of the food chain for treatment in the Pittsburgh area. I mean, this is not a treatment center. This is a place that housed about 200 homeless winos and guys out of prison. The bottom of the dregs. These were the people that couldn't get in anywhere else. And this judge cut me a break, and he said if I go in there and stay for a year and I got good UAs and good PO report, made the restitution, do everything I'm supposed to do, they were going to reduce it to a misdemeanor, and I'd be okay. But if not, it's going to be a felony. I'll do 2 years in a state penitentiary. So I went into that place, and I couldn't imagine, I honestly, I can't imagine a human being with a greater level of determination not to drink than I had at that point in my life. But I'm the guy that it talks about in the book when it says lack of power is my dilemma. No matter how much I make up my mind that I'm not going to drink, no matter how much I surround me by people that will support my decision, it's just an inevitability that I will eventually drink again. And I did. And on that drunk, it was awful and it was pathetic. And I know I'm going to jail and I'm on the run and I'm out living on the streets. And I tried to take my own life. And I went to a bridge with a bottle of Richard's Wild Irish Rose because I just want this to stop. Sometimes when it comes to alcoholism, your liabilities are your assets and your assets are your liabilities. And a thing I would have considered one of my secret liabilities is that I've always been scared and weak and pathetic. Now I can cover it up with violence and acting tough and keep the gorilla outfit on, and I did that a lot, but the truth was secretly I'm always scared and weak and pathetic. And because of that, I couldn't kill myself. I broke down and started sobbing at the moment when I should have jumped, and I couldn't do it. And thank God, because I would have killed a guy who was about, as Bill says, to be rocketed into the fourth dimension of existence. I didn't know that in short order, my life would start to change so dramatically that no matter how long I live, I will owe a debt to Alcoholics Anonymous I cannot repay. But I didn't know that standing on the bridge. I didn't even know I'm dying of alcoholism. Maybe if I could have been honest with you, I might have told, it felt like I was dying of loneliness. Because I don't fit anywhere drunk and I don't fit anywhere sober. And I'm not a suicidal guy, but I'll tell you something about guys like me that aren't suicidal by nature. Suicide can start looking like a good deal to a guy like me because I don't get that there's door number 3. I don't understand that. Because if you've ever sat in Alcoholics Anonymous with untreated alcoholism, feeling like you're dying, sitting in the room sober, and you look at those steps, I don't know anyone that's ever looked at those steps and went, oh, yeah, that's it, yeah. Nobody. And you know, I don't take issue with the steps. I'm not mad at them. I don't even think they're stupid. They're nice. I mean, hey, if I ever got my life together, I might do some of that stuff. I might join a gym too. Who knows? But it doesn't really apply to this massive discomfort that's inside of me. There's no steps in there that I need. I need a set of steps like step 1, make Bob's police record disappear. I mean, step 2, bring her back properly ashamed of herself. I mean, where's the give Bob $1,000 step? I mean, and people in AA, I remember I went to this meeting in the county jail as I was waiting to go to court, and I was so desperate and hopeless, and I went there, and this guy I know from AA comes in, and he always wants to help you. Until I explained to him that I needed him to put his house up for my bail. They say they want to help you until you explain it to them, and then, they don't want to go. He wants to get me a big book. I don't want a big book. I want out of here. I don't got a clue, I don't know what I'm dying from here. I ended up in a detox in Las Vegas, Nevada. And I ended up there because I was hitchhiking cross country. I just trying to get to California. I thought if I could get to the Southern California area, I could survive another winter on the streets. Because I know what it's like to almost freeze to death. I know what it's like to be when you've lost your place to live and there's nowhere to go and it's 5 degrees out. And you just walk all night long. And if you go into some gas station bathroom, it's just to try to fall asleep. Just a matter of time, somebody will roust you out of there and you're back out there walking on those streets. And it don't matter how sick you are. It don't matter how awful you feel. And I thought, well, I'll get to California. They won't find me. I'll get out. They won't catch up with me. I won't have to do a couple of years in prison. I'll be able to survive. And as far as I got was Las Vegas, Nevada. And I ended up in a detox hospital there. And I am just broken. I mean, every bit of me is beaten out of me. And something happened to me. And I sat there in the meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous that were brought into there by guys like, Lloyd knows a lot of them, Dick T. and Dino and Happy Jack and some of these guys, and Selma and Rusty, and they brought these, and Roger, and they brought these meetings in. And for the first time in 7.5 years, I could hear them. Because I had just enough of me beaten out of me to hear you. See, I can't hear you because I got too much of me between me and you. I didn't know until I heard Chuck Chamberlain talk at our intergroup meeting. I didn't understand that what had happened to me is I was surrendered by the bottle. And I sat there in those meetings, and the one thing that kept me from getting everything that God would ever give his kids, everything that you had to offer me, was finally, for a short period of time, a small window, was beaten out of me. And what that was that was standing in my way primarily was my will, which really is my judgment. It's hard to hear anything in AA when you're the great I am. Right? I fit the old adage, you can always tell an alcoholic and you can't tell them much. You know, I'm that guy. I go on a run and alcohol will burn my life to the ground. I'll come back in AA and the first thing I get back is my damn opinion. Right? And I'm the guy that sits there and just runs a little like a commentary over everything you share, picking you apart and finding what's wrong with you, and oh, you're that way, and oh, you're a do-gooder, and oh, you're a born again, and oh, you're this, and who are you trying to impress, and you know, right? And when you're like that, you don't connect with anything here. In 1978, sitting in this detox in Las Vegas, Nevada, there was just enough of me beat out of me that for the first time I heard you. And I sat there, and as I listened to you, I found myself secretly saying to myself inside as I nodded my head, saying, oh my God, I'm like that. I felt like that. I failed like that. I drank like that. I'm that screwed up sober, just like that guy's talking about. And out of that came some hope, and the hope was, my God, these people have obviously changed their life. They're that thing I do not understand. They're happy and sober. Maybe if I threw myself at them obsessively and did everything that they did and followed them around, my God, maybe what happened for them could happen for me. And that was the moment and the time of my life. Because I walked into the only real life I ever had from that moment on. As a result of putting Alcoholics Anonymous as the center of my life. There's a line in chapter 5, I'd heard it read 1,000 times and never understood it, never got it, never saw that it was me. Where it talks about who's going to stay sober and who's not. Who's going to die of this disease in short order and who's not. And the line between the two groups that recover and don't, the ones that don't, is defined in chapter 5 when it says, those who do not recover are people who cannot or will not completely give themselves this simple program. I'm part of that group for 7.5 years. And I don't even know it. I think I'm right in the middle of AA because I go to some of your meetings. You can go to PTA meetings that don't make you a damn parent, and you can go to Alcoholics Anonymous meetings and it does not give you a spiritual awakening. Having had a spiritual awakening as the result, the only single result of these steps. And I started to get to work. And I started to work the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. And what I found to my constant and continual amazement is that Alcoholics Anonymous and the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous do the same thing for me that alcohol once did. They vitalize my spirit, a spirit that really gets sicker when I stop drinking, because I stop drinking and my spirit, my life, my center, my being gets sick and depressed and withdrawn and disconnected from life itself. Alcohol at one time lit my spirit up and made me a part of and connected me to people and to life. And when alcohol stopped working, I was a desolate guy, drunk or sober. And Alcoholics Anonymous has introduced me to a process that's designed to vitalize that spirit. Just because I stop drinking and I throw myself at AA does not mean that I have found, you can go to 20 meetings a week as I did in my early sobriety, and I'm still suffering from alcoholism. But if you go to 20 meetings a week, you're not going to be thrilled about being sober, but you'll stay sober. I mean, you can kind of, it's like I'm trying to outrun my alcoholism, by a whole lot of activity. But I still suffer from depression. And I still get my emotions and my life on me till I am smothering me with me. And I had bouts of that in early sobriety, and the only thing that saved me from that is I'd have some commitment the next day, or I'd have to go over to the detox, or I'd have to go to the jail, or I'd have to do. So it's the way it is. And I don't get that I'm getting relief from this. All I see is the glass half empty, that I'm still plagued with this. And I go to a meeting one night, and I don't know, and I'm just about ready to leave AA. This isn't working for me. And I go to this meeting because I'm in a deep, deep depression and I don't know what else to do. And I asked God for help and I muscled myself off that sofa. I tell you, I felt like I weighed 1,000 pounds and I shuffled out to my car like a mope. And I drove to that meeting and I feel bad. And I'm sitting in the back of the room of that meeting and I can't hear anything in the meeting because when you're overly self-obsessed, the big show's on the inside. Right? What's going on in the meeting is like music in a doctor's office. It's just my fault. I'm up in here. I'm not out here. No wonder guys like me, when we're not drinking, I don't feel like I fit out here. Because the truth is, I ain't out here. I'm up here. So I go to this meeting and I can't hear nothing. I feel bad. There's a guy sitting across from me in the back of the room that's coming off a drunk. And I didn't know him, but I'd seen him at a meeting or two, and he is in bad shape. I mean bad shape. He's sitting and he's grabbing himself and he's rocking back and forth like he wants to jump out of his skin. And then he can't sit still. And then he gets up and he's pacing back and forth behind me like a caged animal. And then the bathroom is right there. You can hear him. He goes in there and he's moaning and dry heaving. And I got to tell you, this guy's annoying the crap out of me. I got a lot of problems in my life here. I'm going to solve this stuff. I know. I just got to think about it more, which is crazy. You ever try to think yourself out of a depression? That's like trying to dig yourself out of a hole. You just go deeper and deeper and deeper. But I'm still a victim of the delusion it talks about in chapter 5 that I can wrest happiness and satisfaction out of this world if I only manage well. Like I'm going to think my way out of this, right? So the meeting is over, and I haven't heard anything. I'm actually worse. Because, you can't, when you're like that, you're in the meeting, you just become painfully aware of how happy everyone around you is. And everybody's in a relationship except you. And everybody has a good job except you. And everybody's having fun in sobriety except you. It's awful. And when you're like that, I remember my sponsor one time, I was in one of those bouts and I called him out. I said, Dick, I just feel awful. He says, how long have you felt like this? I've always felt like this. He said you were great Friday night at the meeting. What are you talking about? Well, I was probably in denial or something, But it seems that way. It looks like it's a long tunnel that's forever. So the meeting's over. I've heard nothing, and I stand to help this guy, Charlie, who's the secretary of the Duffy's group that one night, and set the chairs up and everything for the chapel. And him and I are the last two guys to leave. And Charlie's on his way to work because he worked at one of the bust-out casinos up on the Strip as a graveyard dealer, and he had to go up there and go to work. And the guy, we're standing on the front porch of the chapel, and my car is parked right over there next to this, underneath this. There was a billboard there, and I think I parked under there so the pigeons could decorate my car during the meeting, kind of fit my mood, I guess. But Charlie and I stand on the entrance to the chapel. He's locking up, and the guy that's coming off the drunk is laying on the ground in a fetal position in front of my car. Now, I'm going to have to step over him to go home and think. I'm embarrassed to tell you, which I would have probably done, except Charlie's here. And Charlie's pointing at the guy. Is he going to help him? And Charlie can't help him. He's got to go to work. And Charlie's got a big mouth. If I don't help this guy, he's going to tell everybody, hey, what a lousy member I am. And I'm thinking, oh, man, I'm looking at this guy, and I'm looking at Charlie, and I'm thinking to myself, isn't it enough that my life is crap? Because I know what's coming. In Las Vegas, that if you didn't have medical insurance and you needed detox, you were in a lot of trouble. Sometimes, if you could get enough guys together, we'd sit with a guy, give him a shot every hour, but I wasn't in a position to do that. It's late at night. It's like midnight. And there's only one thing to do, and I'd done it before, and it's awful. I get this guy in my car, and I don't want to get him in my car. He's peed his pants, and he smells, and he's a mess, and I get him in my car, and I'm going towards the county hospital. Because the county hospital back in those days, if you were persistent enough and you bugged them enough, after 4 or 5 hours, they'd eventually take a guy like that in. But they'd treat you like a redheaded stepchild. They don't want to deal with you. Because they want to deal with what they think are real sick people. They don't think these guys they think they're self-inflicted, right? They don't understand alcoholism. So I got this guy in the car, and I'm on my way to the county hospital, and I'm thinking, man, why me? Doesn't anybody else step up to the plate in AA except me? I'm going to be tired. I got to go to work in the morning. I'm going to be tired. I'm going to have a bad attitude. I'll probably lose my job, but it's a lousy job anyway. But I don't say none of that. I'm just driving. I get to the emergency room entrance down at Southern Nevada Memorial Hospital. We're sitting in the waiting room after we checked in and everything. We're sitting there for hours. And I'm giving him cigarettes, and he was flying apart. And there's a vending machine. I'd go get the cans of orange juice and take them over to the coffee thing, put sugar in them, shake it up. Because we used to give him sugar, honey in orange juice. There wasn't any honey, so I'd put sugar in it, give it to him. And he starts telling me about himself. And he starts telling me about the guilt and the shame that he feels, that he can't seem to drink away for the things he did to the people who loved him. He says to me, I've been just trying to get up enough courage to kill myself. And then he really hooks me. He says to me this, and he gets me with this. He says, you don't understand. I'm not like you people in AA. I always drink again. And he's telling me about me. And somewhere in the wee hours of the morning, for no reason I could understand, I fell in love with that guy. I don't know why. He can't get me a better job. He can't do anything for me. He's probably not even going to stay sober a year and give me some kind of credit for something. I mean, this guy can't do nothing for me except that he suffered from alcoholism exactly like I suffered from alcoholism, and I fell in love with him. And it wasn't for a long time later that I found out the power of that. Is, you see, what I'm falling in love with and what I'm loving is the me that is in him. A me that I could never love directly. I remember a therapist told me one time, you got to do positive affirmations. Stand in front of a mirror and just keep saying over and over to yourself, God loves you, God forgives you, God accepts you. I love me, I forgive me, I accept me. God loves me, what a bunch of crap. This is bullshit. Right? Well, that's the way I am, right? I can't love me. That thing that comes out of treatment about you. Well, you can't love anybody else till you love yourself. That is not my experience, man. I'll tell you, I fell in love with you a lot before I even liked me. I forgave and understood and accepted you before I could ever forgive, understand, or accept me. And that happened in the fourth and fifth step. Especially in that part, this was our course where the book takes me to a consciousness and a perception I've never had before. Where it asks me that I must realize, I must get it. How the people I've built these cases and judged so harshly and have felt so smugly superior to, how these people that had wronged me were perhaps like me. Spiritually sick, maybe. That they're like me on a bad day. If I didn't feel very good about myself, if I was afraid like they were afraid, if I'd been raised like they were, can I really see that I'm not superior, that I could have done the exact same thing to someone else that they did to me? Can I get that? And then can I really get how I would have felt about myself if I did to someone else what they'd done to me? And then what happens is I start to take them off the hook. And what happens as a result of reeling in and dismantling all my judgments in the judgment machine, which is my will, I start to claim my place here with you. And any given day, I could, anything that any of you have ever done on the same day emotionally that you did it, I could do it too. If I haven't done something you have done, it's not because I'm better. I just haven't had my emotions put in the screws to me with the certain opportunities that are available, and all the pieces didn't fall together that fell together for you, because if they did for me, I'd have been going down the same road that you went down. You sponsor people, I'm telling you, those of you that sponsor people that listen to fifth steps, after dozens and dozens of them, you start to get it. It's the same guy. It's the same guy. I haven't heard anything new. I just heard one this morning. I haven't heard anything new in 20-some years. I'd like to hear something new. You know, ponies, jumper cables, Visqueen, something, I don't know. But it's never like that. It's always the same sick, childish, pathetic, self-obsessed person full of fear and empty and vacant, trying to fill their holes and stepping on the toes of everybody around them and creating and burning their life down in a futile, desperate effort to fix themselves. The great illusion in chapter 5 that says we're a victim of, the victim of the delusion that I can wrest happiness and satisfaction out of this world by managing well, that is carried into my sobriety. You know, the idea that under the right set of circumstances, if I was properly financed, if I had the right people loving me the right way, if I had everything I wanted in life, all my ducks lined up in a row, surely then I will have wrested happiness and satisfaction out of this world by managing well. In Las Vegas, we had a rash of guys offing themselves with double-digit sobriety. Anywhere from close to 10 years to 31 and a half years. And oddly enough, all those guys except for two of them, the one guy came in a little before me and the other guy came in quite a few years before me. But all of those guys, the rest of them I'd seen get sober. And the ones I hadn't seen get sober, I heard their stories. I know what they were like when they were sober. And if they would have made a checklist in early sobriety of everything that they needed to have in place in their life to be happy and full and valid and satisfied, when they took their own life, they'd completed the list. And isn't that crazy? But when you step back from that objectively and look at it, let's think about that. I mean, I don't know a group of people on the planet that have ever spent more money, put more obsessive time and energy into trying to make ourselves happy as we have, and the end result is most of us wished we were dead. I mean, can you connect those dots? And I'm not talking about drinking. I'm talking about drunk or sober. Drunk or sober. And you'd think that the abundance, I know I went in my 19th year of sobriety, I went into a deep depression. I had more money in the bank than I could spend in a lifetime. I had more $80,000 cars than I didn't have enough garage room for them. And I was dying in here. Because I'd unplugged from my primary purpose. And I didn't even know that it had happened to me. It's my purpose. It's what everything that's happened to me in my life leads me to this point to be useful. And I got away from that. My primary purpose became me. And my toys and my finances and my sex life and me. And I started backing off on my focus in AA and why do guys like me relapse again? I relapse from untreated alcoholism. I don't get thirsty until my spirit gets sick first. And then I don't drink because I like the taste of alcohol. I drink because I start yearning for the effect. Because I ain't okay no more. If you're new here, I want to welcome you to Alcoholics Anonymous. I could spend forever telling you about the things that have happened to me here and how this has fulfilled and enriched my life. I am very, very aware of my debt that I owe to AA. So when someone in Alcoholics Anonymous asks me, go over here and do a meeting in the county jail, I'm telling you, there's only one answer in my book, and it's yes. And a guy says, go down here and go to detox, it says yes. Come up to Redding, California and tell your story, it's yes. It's go listen to this guy's 5th step, it's yes. Go on this 12-step call, it's yes. Answer the phones for central office, it's yes. Be a GSR, a DCM, an intergroup rep. There's only one answer in my book, and it's yes. And if I live to be 1,000 years old, I can't say yes enough for the life you've given me that I want to thank you for.